Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Krishna C. Nadella, and this is State of Mind. Today's topic is entitled Fraternities, Relevant or Reviled? Over the last year, we have seen a number of racist and misogynistic incidents involving fraternities across the United States. Personally, growing up in Canada, fraternities were not a common sight. Sure, there were a couple of chapters way off campus, but the concepts of pledging and rushing were, quite honestly, Greek to me, pardon the pun. As such, by no means am I qualified to speak about fraternities, let alone opine on their value and validity. In that regard, joining us today to provide some insight into these largely misunderstood organizations is Mr. Murtaza Moe Khawaja. Moe Khawaja is a graduate from Rutgers College and past member of Alpha Kappa Psi, the oldest and largest professional business fraternity. During his time at Alpha Kappa Psi, Moe served as the president of his pledge class in the fall of 2006 and eventually rose to the position of Director of Public Relations during his senior year. Moe, thank you for joining us on State of Mind.
Pleasure to be here, Krishna. How are you?
Not too bad. So I want to first of all make sure that our audience understands, to the best that we can, we're going to be talking about fraternities, but also allude to many things that happen at sororities as well. So help set the tone with our audience and explain to us, why did you join a fraternity?
So for me, a fraternity was more about networking.
Okay.
And I wanted to get a full college experience. And I looked around and I wanted to see where's the best place to network. I talked to a lot of alumni, and every time I went to career services, I found out they said the #1 thing is networking to get a job in the future.
Right.
So for me, it was a no-brainer that I'm going to look into fraternities further. And I was a business major, so I started talking to a lot of organizations that were catering to that crowd. So I went to Alpha Kappa Psi, which is a professional business fraternity,
Okay.
and I found a lot of like-minded individuals like myself. I knew I wanted to join a fraternity. I just wanted to make sure the people and I click. That was the most important thing for me. So when I joined the fraternity, it was more about networking, to find a job, make some friends with like-minded ambitions and future goals, is why I ended up with Alpha Kappa Psi.
So what qualities make for a good fraternity, especially from a leadership standpoint?
I think all fraternities, if you open up any fraternity's website, their mission statement will allude to something to do with leadership. What makes it good is pushing the student to develop those skill sets. And what they do by that is holding meetings or having the individual come out of their comfort zone. I think college by itself...
Talk to me a little bit about that. Talk to me about getting out of your comfort zone.
I think the only way an individual grows is when they get out of their comfort zone. And what a fraternity does is it puts you into a whole new atmosphere. Once you go through the process and you're pledging or whatever that is, you get into understanding who you are as an individual and how does this organization supplement your core values and expand those. So you get put into circumstances that you've never been in before.
Yeah.
One of the most important things is, like, you get to meet 100 people you've never met before.
True.
And calling them brothers. So you have to build a relationship with each one of them. So it teaches you to build a relationship with someone who's shy or doesn't know how to approach someone or start a conversation. That instantly starts right there from the very first meeting.
So I think it's be important to understand some concepts, which I've been hearing thrown around, but help us understand and define them to the best you can.
Sure. The
concept of rushing, bidding, pledging, and hazing.
Okay. So rushing is like your interview. I like to give it an example of like a job interview. You go out there. Every school which has recognized fraternities have this thing called Rush Week. And what they do is the brothers, they'll host a party or they'll host something to invite incoming freshman students to come in and meet people. And you don't rush somewhere where you don't get along with someone. You obviously don't go back, but if you had a substantial conversation with someone, you clicked with someone in a fraternity, in a sorority, even in a professional organization such as Alpha Kappa Psi or a service organization, you know, I'm going to go back. I'm probably actually going to go rush, and I'm going to try to become a pledge for that fraternity.
Okay.
So even before we went from rushing where you meet everyone, before you can start pledging, there's a thing called bid. And bid is like your company overlooking your resume. After your interview, they're working with the hiring managers to see if you even click with the culture of the company.
Okay.
Fraternities do the same thing. They have all the brotherhood get together for all the rushes and be like, does this person really fit in? And if they do, they give them a bid.
I see.
And that's the process of bidding.
So it's kind of like, not just is the fraternity good for you, Moe Khawaja, but is Moe Khawaja good for the fraternity?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you're developing a family, a brotherhood, where you look out for each other. And if you really don't share the same values as someone,
Right.
you wouldn't want to bring them into your family per se.
Got it.
And so once you go through the bidding process, you officially become a pledge. A pledge is an 8 to 12 week process, and it's different for every organization, from a social fraternity to a professional fraternity, all the way to a multicultural fraternity or sorority. But the pledging process is 8 to 12 weeks, and what you do is you learn about the history of the school, you have to learn about all the brothers, and you actually have to do things that develop those skill sets, such as, you know, you might have to do presentations, you might have to do historical locators, which is significant sites around the campus for your organization. And with that comes the dark side that sometimes comes with pledging that everyone sees on the media, is the hazing aspect of it. Hazing is not recognized. No fraternity should be doing it. Every fraternity almost gets kicked off if any slight hazing incident happens. There's strict guidelines. If a fraternity is recognized, there are guidelines on how long and how to pledge an individual.
I see.
So hazing happens when the group itself, maybe they had a bad experience and they want to make it worse.
I see.
Or they really want to test someone, but test them in an unfair way. So they really want someone to prove themselves even though they haven't done anything. That's hazing. When you don't let someone sleep, or you make them do things that are not good and representative of the fraternity, you fall into that gray area of hazing.
Okay, so let's take that concept, because it sounds like what you're really applying is a family type feel to it. There's a real relationship, and there are emotional bonds that are formed here. So the average college student is usually typically between the ages of 17 and 22, and we've had past guests who've gone as far as to say their minds are like a bowl of mush. So it's very influenced, and the individuals, whether it be the brothers who are fellow students, not much older, have a lot of bearing in terms of their experience while they're part of the fraternity. Talk to me about the importance of good leadership and how that plays into a successful fraternity.
Absolutely. Every fraternity has someone called the pledge master or the pledge mom in sororities.
Got it.
The master of rituals. They have to make sure that what's happening by every brother is by the code presented by the university. They are at risk of losing their charter, which alumni have worked very hard to get them on campus. You can't just start an organization. So when a new incoming student comes in, remember, it is still college. So you expect them, yes, they're young, and their minds are supposed to be mushed into something. But the idea is you're an adult. You've moved out of your home. You're responsible for yourself. That being said, if you're in a situation where you're not feeling safe, you have to step up. You have to speak up, and it's just as important for the leadership to be like, guys, reel it back. You know, if they don't reel it back, the student has the full responsibility on their own to say stop and walk out, and even go as far as like filing a complaint. Remember, Krishna, this isn't the street. You know, there's no snitching and anything like that. It's, you're an adult and this is your life.
And it's an investment of your time, your money.
Absolutely. And people join fraternities for a number of different reasons. Like maybe someone who wants to make friends, someone who wants to be a better leader. Maybe someone found an alumni who was in the fraternity and they look up to them. All those reasons combined should also let you feel that if the current brotherhood isn't representing what you walked in with, why would you continue? You know, and at the flip of the coin, if you're really strong with alcohol, it's college. Everyone's gonna drink. So let's get through that. I mean, it's not fraternities that party. Everyone parties in college to some extent. But if you're really capable of drinking half a bottle of something, doesn't mean the next person is too. You have to be responsible. And I think what I'm just trying to say is every adult is responsible for themselves in college. So we can't keep playing the, you know, yes, we're there to learn, but you're also there for yourself. Take care of yourself.
Got it. So we talked about some of the incidents that were happening as I opened up the show, at, specifically at University of Oklahoma and Penn State University over the last year. And then we have movies like Animal House, you know, Old School, and most recently Neighbors. It does paint a certain picture of what fraternities are, and I guess it's almost rhetorical to ask, but I have to imagine that's unfair. Talk to me about, one, what that's done to the fraternity community, and then secondly, talk to me about the good things that you guys are doing in the community that we don't hear about.
So one thing to right off the bat, those movies, they probably attract a lot of people that love to
Absolutely.
party.
Yeah.
But I don't think they make it through the pledge process.
Okay.
Because if you join an organization for one reason, and that's to party, you might not really get through the process. You might, but there are strict guidelines such as GPA requirements, community service requirements, you know, meeting people and social skills, leadership skills. You have to do service. If you have to do all of those, if you're there to basically do keg stands at night, you might as well join a club or something.
Right.
You might not want to join something with 200 years of history.
Right.
But the negative light, unfortunately, Krishna, what we know is, and what we try to educate people is, we live in a place where the hazing, the deaths, the racism, they get a lot more clicks online.
Right.
People will watch that a lot more. They won't watch the good things the kids are doing, such as cleaning a river in New Jersey. To give you a good example is Dance Marathon is this thing for the kids, for children with cancer.
Yeah.
So I believe Penn State has it, and Rutgers also does it. The largest charitable contribution comes from Greek organizations.
That's right.
Both in Penn State and Rutgers. But no one's reading that. No one's actually saying, hey, this was, they say, all right, this many dollars was made. But they never look at what the organizations were. How many hours the brothers and sisters of sororities spent, you know, fundraising, baked goods. Sororities at Rutgers, I know they have like bake sales, which goes directly to
help for the students.
So you know,
children.
I guess it's unfortunate, but I think platforms like these, the whole idea is to educate people that there's more to it. Just like applying for a job, but we keep reeling it back to keep it. You're in college to have an end goal of maybe getting employed or starting a business. What comes with that is you look at the pros and the cons. If you see nothing but cons, look for the pros. Why does an institution even allow these organizations if all they do is party, haze, and have racism? Why does a school that you respect and are part of, you remember you're going to be an alumni for life of the school before you're even an alumni of the fraternity. Why would your school want that organization? Look at the good they've done. So I think two sides to a coin.
That's a very compelling point. I'm glad you brought that up. So let's take it one step further, Mo. You eventually do have to graduate from college.
Absolutely.
What type of far-reaching impact has your fraternity experience played into your professional career?
You know, being part of a professional business fraternity, I think one of the things that I can feel is when I sat in an interview room, I felt a lot more comfortable. I talked to alumni who've gone through the process. A lot of times, even before I interviewed for my job, I would send an email out, be like, hey, has any alumni interviewed at this company?
Really?
And they did. They would call me up. We spent like a 15, 20 minutes talking on the phone. They kind of give me a little insight in the questions. They're like, hey, make sure you search the competitors. That's insight that I felt like I could have easily gotten from only my fraternity, because I felt comfortable asking someone, like, hey, what were the hard questions? Going to career services, they might tell you how to prepare for an interview, you know, do what they do. But getting that insight was invaluable. And then you also meet alumni who are working there. And you talk to them. Does the culture fit? Do you really like it? Do you see progression? So I think that's really helped me feel comfortable in applying for the job, interviewing for the job. But more so anything is that network. I really felt good about when I could reach out to someone and get some advice, some real world advice. And also now that I passed college, I feel like I need to do the same for my brothers. And you know, when they reach out, I try to go back, talk to them about the real world. You know, moving from textbooks to like laptops in college, you know, that transition is not easy, especially for the first 2 years. So I think an organization plays a big role. And you know, just to take a little minute out there, Krishna, like one of the things I looked up is 85% of all the CEOs on the Forbes 500 companies were part of a Greek organization or like a fraternity or sorority.
Really?
That's a really large number, 85%. You know, there are some individuals like Warren Buffett, who's like the mastermind of the business world. He was in a fraternity. Condoleezza Rice, almost like since 1825, all but 3 presidents were in a Greek organization of the United States.
Including our current?
Including, I'm not sure, I have to look at that one, but I believe that the numbers don't lie. If you're a person that looks at the numbers, why are these people that are looked up to and, you know, given the responsibilities to run large organizations or countries, why are they going for this route? I'm sure they're not going for the keg stands of the
Right,
parties.
that's true.
They found something there.
Right. So talk to me about the cultural aspect, because I think when we predominantly think of fraternities, and I could be wrong, there's usually a Caucasian element to it. It's something that's, like you said, many, many years, so there's a legacy component to it. How does someone from another country, like yourself, who wants to get involved with fraternity, relate to what's going on? Because a lot of it may not be something that they're familiar with.
You know, the whole point of a fraternity, you know, in the past, it might have been very exclusive.
Yeah.
You know, people with the same like-minded thoughts might have gone together, and unfortunately, that might have related to the same kind of people.
Right.
But we live in a different age,
Yeah.
and where you want to be included. So that's where you go back to that rushing aspect of it. You go in and you see the fraternity. You see if they're actually willing to call you a brother. And if you don't get that thought, then you wouldn't rush for it. But to be honest, Krishna, you have historically black fraternities that now have a Pakistani member, a friend of mine who joined a historical black fraternity. So you have to understand, the idea is to have an interest. A fraternity is there to teach you about the history of why it was there. How did the alumni work hard to set up this organization, to spread the knowledge that they might not learn in a classroom, to bring people together that want to spread that knowledge. So while you're right, and obviously we're not in a perfect world, but it's changing a little bit at a time. But we're adults in college. You have to go in, talk to the brothers, understand, be included. You know, there are predominantly multicultural Indian fraternities that you'll see like a Caucasian person, and you ask them why, and they'll probably say something like, I lived in a very Indian town, I love Indian food, all my friends are Indian, I'm in this Indian fraternity, because they rushed them, they took them. Oh, as a brother, someone brought me to Alpha Kappa Psi. They're like, hey Mo, you might get along with a lot of my brothers, come out to Rush.
Okay.
Same way.
So, as a new parent, I have many years until my son is getting ready for college, but what type of information would you give, or would you encourage parents that have children that are in high school to seek out, to get a better informed decision about fraternities? I
think the most important thing is they have to do their research.
Okay.
You know, as a parent, you want to, as much as you would like to, Krishna, you can't control them all the time.
That's true.
You have to let them out of the house. But you want to give them advice as a father. Maybe because of Canada, you weren't really informed about the fraternities. But if your son's growing up in America, it's a big part of the college experience. So you want him to actually learn from himself. And obviously make sure they're not making the wrong decisions by talking to as many people. Understand from someone, why do you want to do this? You know, I'm hoping you have a relationship where you can talk to your kids, that you can actually be like, why do you want to do this? What are you going to get out of it? And if the answer you're feeling is like, you know, I really can't make friends, or, you know, I'm really looking for a place to party every Saturday night or on the weekday, let's be real, it's college. That's not the right answer, because you can join any organization for that. You really want to understand why the organization was built, why it started, what does it do? And then as a rising junior, rising senior in high school, because they're the ones who ultimately have to make the decision, what type of research should they be doing at a more granular level? I think the most important thing is the website tells you the mission statements. Like every company, you start by looking at the website. What is it they do? What is it they stand for? What is the pillars of the fraternity or sorority? But then when you actually meet the individual, meet the president of the fraternity, that's all part of that bidding process, the rushing process. Talk to them. Ask them, how often do you guys party? How often do you guys do community service? You have to have weekly meetings. A president of a fraternity runs a group of 100 people, so when they translate themselves to the real world, they can use that experience to run a meeting. I think if I was hiring someone, I would hire someone that's able to run a meeting of 100 college students of their peers. I think they can handle a meeting of like their peers at work. So the idea is like talking to the individuals is the most important thing, because you want to make sure your cultures mesh and your ideas mesh, not just what is on a piece of paper. You know, it's the individuals that are your brothers or sisters going forward. And then just for life, we talked about the parallels between the rushing process and then trying to apply for a high-level job, but that's still somewhat applicable to each other, academic to professional. Just personally, what type of lessons did you learn
from your time in the fraternity that you've taken into your personal life?
I think one of the most important things, and I remember my big brother, everyone's assigned a big, who I'm very close to still. He said something that I think every parent almost always says, but I heard it for the first time. He's like, you have 2 ears for a reason. You should listen twice and speak once. So listen a lot more. So when I was the president of my pledge class, we were all the same age. We were all in the same peers. There's no seniority in any way. But you have to listen to every member. Make sure they're happy and doing their job. Otherwise, you won't be able to get through as a pledge class. You're united as a pledge class, and as the president, you have to drive everyone to that end goal. And if you don't listen to each individual, if someone feels like their thoughts aren't coming through, then you failed as a leader. So I still, up to today, use that in my workplace. I kind of always make sure I'm listening, understand, and try to get everyone to also contribute. I always do that. If someone's not speaking in a meeting, maybe after the meeting or during the meeting, if I'm feeling ambitious enough, I'll be like, what do you think? What are your thoughts? You have to have some thoughts about it. And I use that up till today.
Well, Mo, I'm glad I listened twice and talked once today on our episode. Thank you so much for the time, and for most importantly, educating myself on the whole fraternity concept and all the things that it does offer that we don't talk about enough in society.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Krishna.
Thank you. On that note, that'll wrap up our show for today. If you like what you saw in today's episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe on the following social media platforms at the bottom of your screen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and remember, every life is a book. Make yours a bestseller. Have a good night.